Pick Up the Six is sponsored by Mud Gear. Mud Gear serves the unleashed with gear for the modern hybrid athlete that's made tougher. They've created strong, functional performance gear like their performance shirts, shorts, and socks. I wear Mud Gear on the regular. Whether it's for a road race, an obstacle adventure, or a ruck, Mud Gear can help you gear up for extreme performance. Go to mudgear.com, use the code PUT6, and save 15% off today.
Welcome to F3, Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith, where men come together for something more than just a workout. Our core principles define us: free of charge, open to all men, held outdoors, peer-led, and end in a circle of trust. Whether you want to run, lift heavy things, or focus on bodyweight exercises, F3 has over 4,000 workouts available worldwide. Join us, experience the camaraderie, the challenge, and the transformation of F3, where men can get right so that they can lead right.
Join us here at Pick Up the Six as we introduce you to the men and women among us who go above and beyond through service, purpose, and impact. Whether it's travel in the United States or right here from our studios, we can't wait to pick up the six with you. Well, what is up, Pick Up the Six family? It is your boy, Brian Jodas, and just grateful to be back with you. You know, we put out the bat signal. It's like, you know, pace has slowed down a little bit. Summertime, a lot going on in life and career and work and all that kind of stuff. And said, boy, we slowed down our podcast pace a little bit. We got to get back in the studio here. And my man, Chief Chuck Whitworth, put his hand up. Say, hey, bro, I'd love to come on, talk about my career in the Navy and also what I want to do to help continue men in their leadership. And then we've got this interesting kind of F3 adjacent story we're going to share with you guys. But grateful that you're taking some time to join us as we're united through service, purpose, and impact. You know, just sharing stories about the men and women among us who go above and beyond themselves. It's what we've been doing from day one. And our first guest on these very airwaves, none other than Commander Kirk Lippold of the U.S. Navy. So we got another Navy man back today, 100 and something, almost 200 episodes later, which is exciting. And excited for you guys to get to know him. I'm excited to get to know him more and share his story and talk about his background, what he's been doing. Before that, let me thank a couple of great sponsors who make what we do here possible. And you saw my friends at Mud Gear there at the beginning. I've got a promo code for you. It's PUT6. You can save 15% off. Mud Gear makes performance gear for the outdoor athlete. Get it dirty, dude. Wear it in tough conditions, mud, dirt, rucks, runs, whatever you need, man. Even just doing yard work, Mud Gear's got you outfitted. They got everything you need. The best socks in the game, hands down. They're ruck sock, run socks, trail socks, all good, all good. I promise you, you will not be disappointed if you pick up a pair of Mud Gear socks. Their shirts and shorts are also great, and they've got that new Speed Ruck, and they've got a great bundle going on their Speed Ruck right now, which is their rucking boot, sort of hybrid boot trail shoe. You get the shoe, 2 pairs of socks for a great deal. So go to mudgear.com, use my code PUT6, save 15% off of stuff there, and support great company. They've been with us from day one of this show. And I've got to thank the fine folks at Momentus. Had a box of whey protein, amino acids, some D3 show up the other day. LiveMomentus.com, code Brian J, and they'll get you performing at your best, right? You need those things, man, to keep that body tight and right. So go to LiveMomentus.com, use code Brian J, and we'll save you some cash there as well. All right, let me bring in today's guest. Chief Chuck is what we referringly call him. Chief, good to see you, brother. How are you?
Good, Brian. How are you, man? Thanks for
having me.
I
love it. I love it. I love it, man. You got the Gadsden behind you. You got the American flag behind you. You got the Navy flag behind you. I see a pirate up there. I'm assuming somewhere the Navy Jack flag might also be there. It hangs in my garage, but love it, man.
Yep. I've got them all.
I figured you did. He's a 24-year Navy veteran, retired Navy Chief Petty Officer, got a ton of hours in the P-3 Orion as a flight engineer. We're going to get to hear about all of that because I want to learn about this aircraft. You know, remember, my grandfather was in the Navy World War II. My dad flew Air Force fighters for years. My brother now Lieutenant Colonel in the Space Force. But I want to know more about this big bad airplane that was flying around the skies, keeping an eye on our Navy men and women as they continue to do incredible work. But we've got this F3 adjacent story, right? And so F3, obviously a huge part of my life, and we are F3 adjacent on this Pick Up the Six show. And honestly, you know, this idea of service, purpose, and impact rounded out by the ethos of F3, leave no man behind, and quite frankly, go pick up the six. And so I think maybe you saw us and were like trying to get something going, and you've been doing some things in your local area. Like, help me connect the dots here.
Yeah, absolutely. So It's funny, all these degrees of separation, man. It's a small
Yeah.
world. So probably a year and a half ago, a mutual of mine on Twitter, X, Twix, whatever we call it now,
Right.
he recommended me to follow John Rennie, who you were a guest on. John,
Yeah, he's been on my show. I've been on his. Yeah, great friend
yeah,
of the
man.
show.
Sub officer. This guy was like, "Hey, Chuck, you've got a big message. You're pushing honor and integrity, leadership, accountability, all of those things that we look for." He goes, "You really need to get in touch with John." So we got in touch. I was a guest on his podcast. Was a big listener. Still am. I listened to all his episodes. So I was listening to one episode, and it was the episode you were on with John, and man, I'm telling you, it's like someone punched me in the chest listening to you on that podcast, and that's the first time I'd ever heard of F3. I had never heard of it before, so I heard your podcast. I'm like, man, this is it. This is exactly what I want. This is what I'm looking for. So I got on the website, did all the research. Got into the mindset. I'm like, this is it. This is perfect. This is exactly what we need. Because I had been lamenting, and I lamented to John about it too. Ever since I retired in 2007 from the Navy. Was a big active member in the Boy Scouts my whole life. My son's an Eagle Scout. I was a scout leader for 13 years.
The team, man, team guy.
Well, and the thing is when a lot of these organizations started going quote unquote woke, the message got off track. And so I was really lamenting the fact of, and now I work in the government, and I have, college graduates, interns. I see the younger generation coming in, and I'm just like, man, no, we teach management, we teach a lot of things, but we don't teach leadership. You just don't have that male influence anymore. So F3 has really been a big thing for me, following folks. Now, the sad part is, well, not sad, because I'm gonna fix it. So F3 Annapolis, who they're a great bunch of guys, but it's an hour and a half for me to go to any.
That's a hike, dude. That's a hike for proximity. It doesn't work. Yeah. And
so we had a local AO down here by me. Guys were really, really good, but and I'm not casting stones at anyone and not judging, but and I talked to him about this, and we're all still good friends. They didn't totally embrace the F3. They didn't embrace all three Fs in my mind. They like to show up at 6 o'clock. They want to do a workout, and then everybody went their way. Right. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's not going to fix the big problem that we're trying to fix here. I mean, listen, getting these guys right and fit is critically important. But when people say, describe F3 to me, it's a leadership organization. I mean, fitness is a key component of it. But we're here to invigorate male community leadership. That happens at 6:15, 6:30 and on after the workout's over.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm like, hey, where's the circle of trust? Where's the cafeteria? Where's this?
So you got all the vernac down, like you jumped right in.
Oh yeah, man. It's like, I've got the lexicon.
Yeah.
And so, I finally and they kept shifting their time, and it finally just died away.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing to stop me. And I got to thinking, there's nothing to stop me from doing my fitness, which I do, but online circle of trust, having those people, having a group that even virtually, that you can sit there and you can have those conversations with. And so, I live in a pretty big neighborhood subdivision, but we got a lot of men. And so I put it out 3 or 4 times. Hey guys, I'm going to be up at the water tower lot. I'm going to be up there at 6 o'clock. We're going to do some exercise. And I've given them the links.
Yeah.
I put it out there on Facebook to the homeowners group. Hey, look, man, the whole thing, you don't have to be in shape. We will modify. Look, man, let's just
get after. Let's just get going. Yeah. Right.
We need to be a bunch of, sorry, ladies, this isn't curves. This isn't, this isn't jazzercise. This
not even Camp Gladiator, bro.
Listen, man, this is for us dudes to sit around and just talk about the things that dudes talk about.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not done yet by any.
Oh yeah. It'll listen. God will unlock this thing at the appropriate time. And look, I mean, we've had guys, and they can remain nameless. I mean, I had a bro that I was working on, me and Rapido, one of my best friend, Jamie, we were working on the guy for, a couple of years, man. And he would literally walk his dog right by us like every morning at this AL. And finally, one day, it finally clicked and he went and he's in with like both feet. So just timing will be what it is. You keep doing your thing. That's the beauty of, look, I get it. There's a lot of crap on the internet. There's a lot of weird stuff, but it's how we met. It's how John and I met. It's how we can stay in communication with each other and be able to do that and use those platforms to be there. And look, man, the work doesn't stop, right? We know you'll just keep it rolling. And when those guys are ready, they'll come.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people are starting to, I've noticed it here in the last year, I see a lot of people are starting, I think, to realize what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people, men, especially men, are starting to question, hey, what am I doing? Yeah. What am I doing here? What's the point? There's got to be something bigger than this. And so I think as we just saturate the airwaves, and we show them, and I had one guy talk to me at the homeowners meeting the other day. He goes, "Hey, you're the guy that put the thing out about F3, right?" Yeah, that's me. Nah, dude, man. He goes, I haven't worked out in a long time. I'm like, me either,
perfect. Let's get started. Yeah, it's great.
I was like, come on. He goes, well, what kind of workout is it? What do you
want to do, bro? Yeah.
I was like, dude, I got a 20-pound weighted vest. I was like, I walk up and down this neighborhood every day. I was like, dude, just put a dictionary in your book bag and come out your front door when you see me go by and let's go. We'll walk and talk.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I don't go to church. I'm like, okay, I don't either. But that doesn't, I was like, you got to understand, it's not a denomination. It's faith-based. It's about, and I preach this to all my young men. It's always about something bigger than you.
That's right.
It's always about something bigger than you that you will.
Well, and it has to be. And I think that's probably part of the genesis of your point. Let's just get into it is, when the world has turned, not the world, when so many people in our world have turned so inward versus outward, we end up in the situation where we're at, where you feel like we're devoid of leadership, where you feel like we're devoid of strong masculine leaders, because one, we've turned everything inward. What does this do for me? How do I benefit? How does this make me feel? Quite frankly, watching Noah Lyles jump around the track yesterday, that's me. That's self-serving. And he's one example, right? But we've done so much of that, while at the same time, quite frankly, and I'll get faith-based for a second here, rather deep, I believe the enemy has gained a foothold on this idea that toxic masculinity and, we don't need men. And we've been, quite frankly, being removed from parts of society. It's why men are killing themselves at alarming rates. It's why we see all these other different things happening. And so what we're doing here through this small workout group for men is saying, no, listen, guys, we know who you are. We know you're valued, and we know that you want to have purpose in life. Yep. So get here, get to working out, get to doing stuff in your community together. And to your point, get into believing something bigger than yourself. The jackass is the man at the center of the universe. The high impact man is the one that lives third, right? God first, family second, and then himself third. And so that's the ideological shift we need to have. And you grew up in a generation where you saw those men, and we're not devoid of all of them now. It's just, right, they've been pushed aside. And so you saw those guys, right? Like my grandfather came back from World War II. I'm sure you had family members, right, that were part of that great generation where everything they did was outside of themselves. 16-year-olds lying on their entrance dates to be able to go into the military.
Yep.
Right. So those kinds of things, and we've got to bring back that. And what we're seeing, and I'll let you jump back in here, is I think that's why we're seeing more of this now. And we're seeing more things like Jocko's good, this idea that, all right, I want hard things. And this idea of, we're seeing more camps for men, leadership training, father and son activities, things that F3 are doing, things like just other things that are happening out there in this same space, where I'm like, yeah, I think he's calling us around a united mission here.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all, and I agree 100%. And I mean, for me personally, over the last couple of years, just some coming out of the coronavirus and all of that stuff, and learning to navigate in the new world, as I call it. but it's as I've gotten older, I turned 60 last year. So, I mean, as I get older,
Honor.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things to where I realize that you start realizing I probably have less time on this earth than I've already used up. And so I look at it two ways. I have a choice. I can either just lament that fact and give up and go, well, write it in, homie.
Right.
Or I can go, hey man, I don't know how much time I have left, but in the time I have left, what mark am I going to leave on the world? What else can I do? I can't quit working. I can't stop. There's just too much to do. And I've seen it. We had a point in time, and I tell all these young interns that come to work for me, I'm like, there's a couple of things that I can teach you. I don't care about your degree. I don't care what your background is. I need a work ethic. I need an attitude. I need a willingness to learn, to show up, to be a member of the team and contribute. Have a voice. Have some honor. Own your mistake. Take accountability for your mistake. It's okay. We'll fix it. But I mean, for me personally, you sit there and look, and it's like, okay, I could tell you stories that would stand people's hair on end of the things that I did when I was a young sailor in the 80s in the bars around the world. Thank God we didn't have cell phones or anything. But yeah, I mean, here lately, it's just been, to Jamie's post today, and I kind of caught that inside of, the drive on today was the tempster is in our ear constantly, or as Dredd says, the jester is always on our shoulder. He's always trying to steer us. And I look at it as, okay, you want to go to war? Let's go to war. I know a little bit about it, so let's go to war. I'll fight you back with preaching honor and integrity and be right with yourself. And the things that you guys or we guys teach in F3 is exactly the same thing that I was taught as a young man, in the 70s. My dad was like, dude, it's never about you. It's always about your faith. It's about your family. It's about your team. And that prepared me in the military to actually become a really good leader, because it was always, you hear about the concept of leaders eat last.
Yeah.
That's always been the thing for me, because I grew up in our house, my dad was the oldest, so nobody ate till he ate. You didn't take a bite till he took a bite. And that's just respect, and that's just honor of traditions. But I'm with you. I hear more and more things calling us.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I don't know how it happened, and it's pretty wild. But I was just flipping through the Fire Stick home screen, and I saw this documentary. Never had heard of Chad Wright until the other day.
Dude, he's awesome. I know a couple of his buddies too. Justin Shealy's become a good friend, and those guys know each other well.
I'm telling you, man, you watch.
He nails it. You'll be on fire. Your hair will be on fire.
It is.
Your soul will be on fire too. You
literally want to go tear a wall down and just start doing stuff. And I'm telling you, Brian, that changed. Last week, my wife was on a trip to see her parents, and I sat here in the house, and something dawned on me, and it clicked. And I'm like, you know what? Something he said, I was like, I have a ton of aches and pains. We all talk about the fart sack. Are we going to go answer the bell? And I've had those mornings, and now my whole mindset is, you know what? As Chad Wright put it, he goes, every pain you feel, every little ache, it is a privilege for you to feel that. And I'm telling you, if I don't get anything else across to anybody else the rest of my time on this earth, is understand the privilege that we have to be walking this earth every day, and to have the opportunity to do things and do right by people, do right by ourselves and our family and our men and everybody around us. And so you call it what you want, but I am a believer that more and more people are being drawn to what's right. Call it religion, call it Jesus, whatever it is that you believe, but people are being called back to, we are off track and we are off course. We need to find the right, and the light always shines through in the end. So they're going to come to the light. So.
Hoo-yah. Well said. 24-year Navy veteran, retired Navy Chief Petty Officer, 5,000 flight hours as a flight engineer in the P-3 Orion. And that's a big big bad plane that like sits over top of the seas, right? Keeps on
Yep.
submarines. Tell me about that. Well, first of all, tell me your journey there. How'd you end up in the Navy? What was it? You mentioned your dad,
Yep.
family experience, right? What was it that got you into the Navy?
So, by today's standards, my dad would have been a jackass because he told me from an early age of high school, he goes, look, boy, he goes, when you graduate high school and you turn 18, he goes, you got a choice. You want to go to college? You better start working and saving now because we're just a poor Southern family in North Georgia. I ain't got the means, but you got the methods and you got the muscles. He goes, or he goes, join the military. You are not going to stay in this little town of 2,000 people.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to work at the textile mill and get a trailer in our backyard. He goes, you're going to go be somebody. So I joined the military. I didn't want to go to college. I was a class clown in school. I did okay in the grades, but just didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I first joined the Army. And I was in the Army for 2 years. Went to boot camp at Fort Jackson back in the old days on Tank Hill. Loved the Army, didn't have anything against it, man. But after 2 years, I just said, I don't want to camp out for a living anymore. It's just, no, I wanted to get into aviation. When I was a little kid, man, they took me to the airport and I would just stare at the planes. And I've always been fascinated with aviation. So I went and saw a Navy recruiter. He goes, yeah, man, we'll take you.
They just rolled you. I mean, how does that work, right?
Well, typically they'll just roll you in, but because I had such a gap between the time I had to get discharged from the Army, Navy couldn't take me right away, and because it was a gap, I got to go to boot camp again for the Navy. So I've got 2 boot camps under my belt. You know what? It's one of those things, man. We had that mentality that Chad Wright will tell you about SEAL training. You go to boot camp, man, you don't think about graduation day. You think about, can I make it to breakfast?
Yeah, make it to the next meal. That's
right. Yep, you make it to lunch. You make it to the end of the day. You go to sleep. It's no big deal. You're getting paid. So, you get to do PT for money. I'm like, this is awesome. So, yeah, I did that. Went into aviation, was a mechanic for a while, and then decided I wanted to go aircrew on the P3 when I got to a P3 squadron. So, for those that don't know, P3, you can Google it, P3 Orion. It's a big, 4-engine turboprop, anti-submarine warfare, maritime patrol aircraft. It's big. So I got to a squadron. Enlisted guys are flight engineers. So the flight station, usually you have a pilot, co-pilot, which are naval officers. At the time, the P3 was the only military aircraft with an enlisted that had flight crew responsibilities in the flight station. And then you got about 16 other guys in the back, the sensor operators and the analysts, the tactical coordinators, the ordnancemen, the in-flight technicians for the avionics. I got into that and said, hey, man, I want to go to school. I want to learn how to be a flight engineer. I wanted to fly. So I went to aircrew school in Pensacola. Another 5 weeks doing PT and swimming for money. Did 6 months in engineer school and flight engineer school for P3 at the time. It had an attrition rate that was it was worse than SEAL attrition.
Wow.
My class started off with 32 students and graduated 3.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of technical stuff. I mean, you look at the cockpit or the flight station of an aircraft, you see all those switches, the circuit breakers and stuff. You just have to learn that, but you also have to learn systems theories because the flight engineer, you're responsible for flight planning for fuel. We shut down engines to save fuel, so that's your job. Emergency systems, overall flight crew awareness. You're helping pilots out when you're down low because we typically prosecute submarines at about 200 feet off the water, and you're screaming, man. You're about 200 knots just to stay flying. So it's a high stress environment, and so that's why it's such an attrition rate. Because it is a high stress environment, but. I did that, went to my squadrons, then became an instructor flight engineer and an evaluator. And it's actually kind of easy to get 5,000 flight hours. It sounds like a big number, and it is, but our missions were typically 10 to 12 hours at a
Gotcha.
time.
Yeah.
So, you rack up.
Yeah, I mean, I think my dad's got, a little over 3,500 hours across F-111 and F-15 and all that, and probably shorter duration flights than what you guys are doing in the big bird. So,
yeah.
Which makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great job. And I tell people, I was like, I've been around the world a couple of times.
Yeah. I was going to say, where's that thing taking you?
It's pretty much taking me around the world. I mean, usually when I do talks and do podcasts, people go, hey man, where's some of the coolest places you ever been? And I'm like, well, okay. I was like, the coolest place probably I've ever flown was over the North Pole.
Wow.
Yeah, there's well, I mean, it's cool, but it's cool, but it's also, I tell people, it's kind of a letdown. I mean, what was funny is when we were doing the operation.
Well, obviously the big man keeps the whole North Pole camouflage, so you can't really see anything.
Well, here's what was funny. Here's this big airplane. You got 16 guys in it. We're all professionals. We're all senior aviators. We're all Navy guys. We're ready to go to war at any moment. And as we're watching the GPS, and you're waiting for the compass, the GPS to roll zeros.
Yeah.
For the north to swing on the compass card to swing. There's literally 16 of them crowded up behind my seat in the flight station. They're all looking out the window,
thinking they're going to
included. And then we all realized we really were looking for a red stripe pole.
That's what I'm like. You're just like, well, maybe we'll see something. Like, no.
And it was one of those things.
He keeps it hidden, kids. He keeps it. Obviously, he keeps it hidden.
It was one of those things to where we kind of looked at each other. You know how guys are when you're
all
caught in something embarrassing. we all kind of looked at each other and we're like, we're not going to speak of this. When we so yeah, flying over the North Pole. I mean, it is cool. I mean, you see the compass card spin.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That'd be pretty sweet.
The other thing is, I got to spend a lot of time in Rota, Spain, because we would chase submarines from the North Pole under the ice. We would chase them across the Mediterranean. Did a lot of counter narcotics operations. We switched in the P3 when the Cold War ended. We switched missions we were doing a lot of counter narcotics operations. So, Panama, Venezuela, South America, some really cool places doing some things. And then we also did some overland. We switched our mission again during the Iraqi stuff in Afghanistan. We could do overland. We had cameras we actually worked with the SEAL teams. We had a camera that we can fly pretty far off station, about 10 miles off at 10,000 feet. Wow. And we can tell you what book you're reading in your living room.
Holy cow, that's wild, man.
So we were doing a lot of that and basically doing air support for the SEALs. The only other cool thing that I ever got to do in Puerto Rico was we actually got to throw SEALs out of our aircraft. They would do jump operations because just in case we ever needed it.
Yeah.
And
where were you guys flying out of? Were you in Borinquen or Ramey or what?
We were out of Rosie Roads.
Okay. Puerto Rico. Yeah, I've been there. Yep.
So the SEALs would come in and we'd actually all stay in the barracks together. And so I've had a lot of different operations with the SEALs, and that's what it's funny. People see people like, Chad Wright and stuff. I mean, Jocko is probably the what most people picture when they think of a SEAL, but then you see the Chad Wright.
No, Chad's hilarious because he's very well built. He's strong, but he's thin.
Yeah.
He's a little taller than you expect, and he's just got this big straggly beard. Obviously didn't have that when he was in the teams, but he doesn't look like what you'd probably assume. And then a lot of those guys that I've met too are shorter than most guys would probably expect.
Oh yeah. We had a former SEAL who had to he left the teams for medical because he shattered his leg. But he became a maintenance officer, aviation maintenance officer, and he was in our squadron. Great guy, and they would come around and we'd meet them in Puerto Rico to throw them out of the airplane and stuff. And they're never, I tell people, they're never what you expect. I mean, They're just normal guys. They like to laugh. They have fun. They're not big hulking dudes. But you always know in the back of your mind that they will kill you in an instant.
I'm glad they're on our side
about it.
Yeah, you're glad they're on our side. There's no doubt.
So yeah, I mean, I had a great 24-year career, and I tell people, I got to see a lot of cool places, but probably the highlight and the biggest honor I ever had was I had the great privilege and honor to lead America's Sons and Daughters, and that is a gift that if you never had it, then you just don't understand the value of somebody entrusting their son or daughter to you to lead and take care of.
My youngest brother, about a month ago, took command of a Space Force squadron out of Vandenberg Space Force Base. He's a lieutenant colonel and really proud of him, absolutely killing it. My father was in the Air Force for 36 and a half years and was a commander at multiple levels. And we were sitting around just hanging. And the exact words he said to my brother the night before is there's not a better job in the United States military than being a commander, than commanding. And he said, in the Air Force, commanding a squadron, right. And having obviously the stress that comes with that, but that incredible amount of pride and responsibility in, in being accountable for what happens to that squadron and those men and women. And he's part of the squadron that is training the preeminent Space Force fighters now, right? Getting them ready for this next wave of what our military is going to have to be about, right? Cyber warfare and the things that are happening that you guys never see is real and all the time. People are like, your bro's in the Space Force? That's real. I'm like, yeah, it's as real as it comes, man. It's super real.
Yeah, and people don't realize too, okay, so the inter-military rivalry is awesome, and I still love it to this day. I think the Air Force was probably the most ecstatic when they created the Space Force.
Yeah.
Because now the Air Force is finally like, man, now the Marines and Navy and Army will leave us alone for a little while.
They can make fun of the Space Force guys.
The Navy comes in and, the catered breakfast and the golf courses and the chair course and all that. The Space Force was probably, for us, for intermilitary rivalries, it's great. But on the serious note, people don't realize that it was an absolute necessity to create the Space Force based on the battle space as it has evolved over the years, because the resources that was putting on the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army combined for cyber warfare, for basically just command of the overall airspace, because it's not a commander on a radio talking to the tank over the hill anymore, man. It's global communications. Like I said on the P3 during, Iraqi freedom and stuff like that in Afghanistan. I mean, we're beaming pictures back to the Situation Room at the White House in real time. So to have that infrastructure and have people relied on that and to protect that is just monumental. And so people go, the Space Force, what the heck is the Space Force?
Then they see Michael Scott on Netflix and they're like, what is this? And then people are like, when do you get your lightsaber? I'm like, all right, take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's always going to be that. But I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had to put up with the whole, in the Navy thing and the village people and the YMCA. So, and the Popeye jokes. And I get it, man. And
it's all good, brother.
Yeah.
Man, 24 years, got to see the world. But now, you get into kind of, this later phase of life, man, 60 years old. And you talked about at the beginning, wanting to use that time to really instill in others 2 words that you said that I want you to unpack for me a little bit. And I want you to answer this with a little bit of time that we have remaining. Honor and integrity. What does it mean for our listeners, right? Those guys and gals listening to live with honor and live in a life of integrity. What would you tell them? What would you challenge them with?
So, I mean, I've done this before, and part of when I teach honor and talk about honor, and I did it with the Boy Scouts a lot, because, when they become an Eagle Scout, honor is a big thing of Scouts, and it's just a big thing in the military. The core values of the Navy are honor, courage, and commitment. So to sum it up really quick and easy, is I tell people honor is what is right inside of you. We all have this voice. We all have this inner thing that we know what is right, and we know what we should do. Integrity is when you engage that what is right when other people may or may not be looking. So honor is the concept, it's inside you. Integrity is what brings it out. That's the execution. That's the action. That's the verb. I tell people all the time, integrity is a noun and it's also a verb. Okay. It's a thing and it's also something you do. It's an action. Integrity is an action. So I reminded the Scouts, I'm like, hey man, I was like, do you guys understand what it is when we say honor? It's just, is it, laying your coat down in the street for a lady? That's manners. That's politeness. Opening the door for your mom, pulling the chair out for your wife. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Those are manners, and that's politeness. Honor. Think about those guys when they signed the Declaration of Independence. And I tell them that story. I was like, the average age was 20 something.
Yeah.
Taking the mean. These guys, when they were serious, I was like, they knew that they were going to give up their farms. They knew that they were going to give up their property. They knew that they were probably going to give up their money and they were going to be broke. And they also knew that there was a really, really good chance that if this didn't work, they were all going to hang.
Yep.
But those guys sat there and thought about this, and they actually told each other that when they made that pact, that they would pledge their fortunes, their lives, and their sacred honor.
Sacred honor. That's right.
I'm like, notice they didn't say their sacred fortunes. They
No.
didn't say their sacred lives.
Yeah.
They said their sacred.
It's elevated. It's elevated. It's another level.
And the way I explained that to him, I was like, do you know why that is? I was like, the devil, man, enemies, they can take my fortune. They can take my life. You will not take my honor.
Yeah.
That is mine. You cannot have it. I will not let you have it. And how you keep that muscle flexed is by having integrity. Integrity encompasses honesty, accountability, responsibility, all those things. You have integrity when you can make a mistake, own it, and then fix it. I tell them, I was like, how many times have you walked by in a parking lot and you seen a soda can sitting there?
Yeah.
I was like, you walked by and in your head, somewhere in the back of your head, you were like, I could have picked that up. But you didn't. So you had the honor, you had the intent, but you didn't have the integrity to do it. I was like, integrity is when you pick up that can. I was like, and it's really integrity when you pick it up and nobody sees it.
That's right.
You put it in the can and you don't have to tell anybody.
That's right.
And that's what I tell them. I was like, man, that's the only thing about the social age today is you get on there and you go, I did this, man. I raised this much money for so-and-so. Okay, so what? Good for you. It's better to do those deeds and not be seen. Do the deed for the sake of doing the deed. I tell them, live right. Don't live right live right for yourself first, and then live right for everybody else. And so I think that's what I try to tell everybody, and I try to put forth out there that it's living a life of honor and integrity. It's actually peaceful. You want to find peace. You want to all this world of anxiety. Hey man, if you know you're doing the right thing and you're practicing it every day, you're good, man. Go to sleep at night, close your eyes, lay your head down and go, you know what? I had a good day. And then tomorrow morning, it doesn't count. It all starts over when the bell rings, man. Go out and do it again and just do it again. Constant forward motion.
Yep. It's like rolling over that North Pole, right back to zero.
You just go right back to zero, man. You go, it's over and over. And so, I mean, I think with some of the tools that we have today, doing podcasts, getting messages out, F3, just those things to get those people excited and get them to get on board with the message of what a life of honor and a life of integrity really is.
Man, outstanding. Guys, if you want more of this and an easy way we can do it, and again, it's the beauty of these platforms, Chief Chuck right there on X. He's got funny quibs, man. He's got a great sense of humor. Then he also comes in with the leadership bombs as well, which is makes for a great follow. So tell them where they can find you so they can engage. And if people want to link up, man, and get to talk to you.
Yeah. Hey, on X, Twitter, Twix, whatever you want to call it, it's at Chief Chuck 2K. That's where I'm at on Twitter. I don't have a website, don't have my own podcast, don't have my own stuff.
Not yet, at least. Not yet,
man. We're
not yet, at least.
I do have a YouTube channel as well that I post some things on. Same thing at Chief Chuck 2K. And then my email is, oddly enough, go figure, at chiefchuck2k@gmail.com. If you want somebody to talk, hey man, I'm happy to speak. If you just want to have a one-on-one conversation, that's cool too, man. I'm just trying to get the word out.
I get the feeling you've probably got legal pads or notepads or a digital file somewhere of topics you would want to talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then you and I get together and let's do a little series and let's get Chief Chuck out there more.
Okay. Hey,
let's do some of that, right? We can do that, bro. We got the platform. We can make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and it's, people time constrained with attention spans. I get it.
Right. Hey, you hit pause and you listen to us for 5, 6, 7 minutes. Jump back in with us later. You got 30 minutes here.
If you get one thing, and it's a deep subject and there's levels and levels and levels of what leadership really is. And it's easy to do. And it just makes you feel good when you do it. So yeah, absolutely happy to do that.
Love it, man. All right, my brother. It was great to talk with you. Great to hang out this way. We could do this for hours, but I think maybe we'll do it again sometime soon.
Awesome. Hope so.
Chief Chuck Whitworth. Grateful for him and the great conversation we had today. Chief, hang on for a second. We'll talk once we get done here.
You
guys, ton of fun. Thanks for hanging out with us for the last 40 minutes or so. As always, rate, review the show, send it to your friends, help us spread this important message, sharing stories about the men and women among us who have gone above and beyond through service, purpose, and impact. I'm Brian Jodis, and that's been this episode of Pick Up the Six.